I request everyone to please settle down. Excellencies, distinguished delegates from LAC region and other parts of the world, and business leaders from India. Please join me in welcoming our chief guest for this session. May I now request Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General CII, to formally welcome.
It's tough to settle down, as many of you have just about landed and have almost come straight from the airport after 20 plus hours of journey. But thank you very much. Excellencies, Dr. S. Jaishankar, our Honorable Minister for External Affairs of the Government of India, Honorable Ministers and dignitaries, as the Honorable Vice President, Her Excellency from Venezuela, Mr. Dinesh, the President of CII, Excellencies, distinguished delegates from the LAC region and other parts of the world, and business leaders from India, very senior officials also from our Government of India, especially the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Commerce. A very good morning and a warm welcome to all to this very, if I can say, a transformed edition of the Latin America Conclave, and we have titled it as Furthering Economic Partnerships for Shared and Sustained Growth. And it's indeed a great honor to welcome our distinguished guests from the LAC region. And we sincerely appreciate your traveling this distance to come to our country and to engage with our business community and talk to our senior leadership, which really reflects the mutual interests. Thank you very much for your support, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege for us here now today to especially welcome the Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, who we all know his relentless efforts have played a very important and a key role in bolstering the India-Latin America ties. And Honorable Minister, we personally witnessed your commitment to the LAC region during your visit to Guyana, Panama, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, all of that in April. And in spite of the challenges of logistics, you made it possible to be there. And the business community from India, there was a presence of a strong business community who accompanied the Honorable Minister, and they came back. We sent a delegation from CII, and when they came back, they were so encouraged to see how much of opportunity was there, which you really led. And during the visit, some of the major sectors of cooperation that were discussed and relevant ones, many of which we have included in this summit, which is taking place. It covers energy, health, pharma, some of the developmental partnerships, capacity building is an important area, agriculture, innovation, technology, and defense and infrastructure. So it's really to build on your visit and explore a few more emerging sectors of collaboration between India and LAC. This conclave has been put up. And following the COVID disruptions, the conclaves comes when we are in India at the helm of the G20, and the Global South really is playing a great part in the economic development. Honorable Minister, during your visit to the region, which I spoke about, you had pointed many factors I had seen through the papers and others, 10 positive issues that you had talked about, such as the economic size, the digital transformation, exports, and others that make our businesses an advantageous partner for the LAC countries. And the impetus from that visit is reflected from the fact that we are joined by the Executive Vice President, Her Excellency from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and Minister of the People's Power of Economy. We have finance and foreign trade, as well as 17 ministers from 11 countries, governors of 2 of the most important provinces from Mexico and Cuba. A very warm welcome to all of you, and we are indeed grateful that you could come here in spite of the distance that we all talk about. And from the perspective of this, from the Indian industry, from the business, we were really trying to look at how we structured this conclave given this background. And first, we are trying to look at, to bring together when we are talking about reshaping the global value chains through diversification of trade and higher mutual investments, our opportunities in the Latin American region, and also how we could in fact focus on certain sectors like manufacturing services, agriculture, and infrastructure. We have deliberations around these in the conclave. Second, we have also focused on emerging technologies whose advances, of course, offer phenomenal scope to build partnerships such as startups, digital healthcare, education, digital commerce, R&D, innovations. So this is, again, as you will see, a part of the conference during the next 2 days. The third, of course, the climate change mitigation. We are focused on it, and that's an imperative that features very strongly into our conclave, along with renewable energy, bioenergy, agriculture, and sustainable and green products. Therefore, we have 12 sectoral sessions covering these diverse areas that I had been talking about, and we would like to deepen this engagement. Since 2007, we have been involved in this conclave, but since the last few years, in our deliberations and discussions and the advice that we have got from our Honorable External Affairs Minister, his focus and his directions to us have always been strategically to see how we engage deeply into the region. And therefore, we have a very reshaped and a very differently modeled Latin America conclave this year. And so we do wish to take advantage of that. Once again, a warm welcome to all our governors, ministers, delegates, dignitaries from the LAC region. And I really welcome the officials who have come and the business delegation which has come. And I'd like to also welcome our Indian business delegates as well as our government officials who are present here. A very, very special welcome to our chief guest once again, the Honorable External Affairs Minister of India. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. May I now request our Dinesh, the President of CII, to make his remarks, please.
Dr. Jaishankar, Honorable Minister of External Affairs, CB, Excellencies, distinguished delegates from Latin America, other parts of the world, and Indian friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege for CII to come together with our friends to host yet another conclave of the India-Latin American countries. My very special welcome to Dr. Jaishankar, and we are very grateful to you for your continuous support and valuable insight on how we can further this relationship between India and the Latin American countries. As CB mentioned, you have been very active. I think 3 countries last year and 4 countries this year where CII has been very privileged to accompany you and further pursue the agenda of furthering this relationship. While the 2 continents or 2 countries are separated geographically, there is significant complementarity and synergy that exists between the 2 regions. The economic dimension of our partnership is actually the platform for the Global South and the way in which the Global South countries can work together to sustain the economic recovery and work on resilient supply chains and make sure that there is much closer integration of the developing countries. I think we now are on the cusp of a great opportunity to make this grow faster and further. As CB already mentioned, this conclave is a perfect platform to deliberate on how we can not only strengthen economic bilateral relationship, but pave the way for accelerated investment flows and further collaborations between the private sectors of the 2 countries. In alignment with the current government priorities, I think there's a huge opportunity to further the trade between the 2 geographies, so to say. Already, we have many Indian companies who have invested in this region. Speaking of TCS, Infosys, whether it be TVS, Bajaj, they have been creating jobs and exploring it as a gateway to other economies as well. In that background, if I could mention a few specific areas of focus for us. First and foremost, we have 50 billion of, I would call it, very evenly balanced trade between the LAC and India. I would be a little bit ambitious to say that we should target a 100 billion number by 2028, which I believe is achievable. Two, the focus on, I would call it, sustainable energy resources is something which India has already committed to. As all of us know, we have had significant increase in trade with Brazil on this front. But is there a possibility to look at joint ventures and partnerships in energy exploration, production, and distribution, and exploit the natural resources which are available in abundance in the LAC markets, and see how they can be harnessed for the benefit of both of these countries together? Second is with regard to the agriculture and food security. Again, both the countries, both the nations can work together in terms of collaborative efforts in agriculture research, technology transfer, and value addition to make sure that food security becomes a core focus for both of our regions. I would say that the governments can identify, and of course it has to be a specific country-wise approach, on the horticulture and meat products where we can build global value chains for addressing third world issues as well. We all know about the pharmaceutical and health services leadership which India has achieved. Mutual recognition agreements and fast tracking of approvals could help in this regard. While many Indian pharmaceutical companies have been present in that region, I think it is important that we further increase this. To make sure this happens, I think there is a great opportunity to consider a free trade agreement that will encompass trade, investment, services, and non-tariff barriers as well. As we now move on to the focus on infrastructure, I think India has had great success with public-private partnerships, and there have been good learnings which other countries can work with. I think there is a possibility to create an infrastructure dialogue between both the sides that could identify a shelf of projects for mutual investments and support and make it happen. An increase in infrastructure will obviously help the logistics sector, which I think CB mentioned is a big challenge when it comes to how we engage together, considering the geographical separation. The last 2 points I'd like to finish with is in terms of digitization and innovation. I think India and Indian companies have taken the lead both from the fintech sector and the way in which we could work together to develop best cost solutions. I don't want to use the word least cost, best cost solutions for the relevant markets and the relevant countries. I think there is an opportunity to create significant financial linkages with the countries through both interoperability of digital platforms as well as see how this digital innovation can be leveraged for the benefit of both markets together. And for this, we will need to create necessary forums for knowledge sharing and partnerships through educational and research institutions as well as with the private sector. And finally, and most importantly, is the need to have more cultural integration by making sure that we can promote people-to-people ties, better connectivity, and most importantly, to build this partnership of trust, which will then further the economic activities together. From our side, we'll continue to work on these issues and support greater engagement, and we now look forward to the guidance and support from the Honorable Minister on this. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a proud privilege now to really welcome someone who has for decades guided very strategically the Indian industry for its global forays, and especially our institution, in seeing how we from the Indian industry are able to be effectively connected globally. Someone who has not just given strategic inputs and guidance, but someone who has actually held our hands over the decades in many, many avatars of his in seeing how Indian businesses actually flourishes and internally we have therefore been able to become so much more competitive over the decades because of the way he has handled and led us in our global forays. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a proud privilege and honor to welcome our chief guest, Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Honorable External Affairs Minister of India.
President CII, Mr. R. Dinesh, Director General CII, Chandrajit Banerjee, Your Excellency the Vice President, Excellencies the distinguished ministers. I know 17 of our colleagues from 11 countries are here with us today, and that I think itself is a cause for great congratulation. Representatives of the business world, those who have taken an interest in the development of India's cooperation with Latin America, a very good morning to all of you. I am truly delighted to be here to address the inaugural session of the 9th CII-LAC Conclave on furthering economic partnerships for shared and sustained growth. I see that the program of this conclave is very well laid out, that it encompasses all sectors of interest to both India and to LAC countries, and that there are separate sessions focusing on regional groupings such as CARICOM and SICA, which underline the diversity and breadth of our engagement. Parallel investment tracks, reverse buyer-seller meets, sector-specific sessions, visits to industrial clusters. I think all these together will provide a 360-degree visibility and understanding to the delegations about the promise that India holds today. I am, of course, particularly pleased to be here with you because to me, meetings such as these are actually proof that foreign policy delivers, that at the end of the day there is business to be done, there are contracts to be concluded, there are numbers by which you can actually measure successes or challenges in foreign policy, and this is for me a very, very good occasion to do that in respect of Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, this conclave takes place in the context of the upgraded engagement between India and LAC countries in recent years. Over the last 9 years, since Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been at the helm, our ties have actually moved on a new trajectory. Indeed, India's relationship with the region is being nurtured across the full spectrum of the Indian leadership. Latin America and Caribbean regions have witnessed notable engagements with 34 high-level visits, which include 6 visits each from the President and the Vice President and 4 from the Prime Minister. The most recent, of course, among them has been the visit of our President to Suriname, where she was conferred the country's highest distinction, the Grand Order of the Chain of the Yellow Star. And this honor only underlines our historic relationship and the tremendous goodwill between India and the region. In turn, India too has hosted 38 high-level dignitaries, and we are adding a few more today, with 8 of them being presidents. Furthermore, our commitment to greater contacts is also evident through the establishment of 2 new embassies in the region, one in the Dominican Republic and the other in Paraguay. Now, as you would have noted, I have been personally myself making regular visits to the region, and I assure you the count would have been greater than what Mr. Banerjee told you had it not been for 2 years of COVID. So I expect next month to be in Cuba, and I still hope very much that during this term I will have further opportunities. But so far, I have visited Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, more recently Guyana, Panama, Colombia, and the Dominican Republic. As I said, I look forward to being in the region again. But I also want to make the point, and I say this as much for the Indians in the room as for our colleagues from the LAC region, that many of these were really first ever visits by an external affairs minister. And I think that in itself is a reminder of the need for us really to pay greater attention and to invest really more time and energy in this account. Additionally, we are now covering a lot of ground by actually meeting on the margins of regional and multilateral events. This has allowed us, for example, to meet with CILAC, with CARICOM, with SICA, and again next month when we have our annual meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, I expect to see many more of our LAC colleagues at that time. Now, during my interaction, I have noted a growing interest and for deeper engagement with India. And it's also been very heartwarming to see the goodwill that India holds among the people of the region. And I must say that I've in my own travels, had a chance to experience some of that, not just in official functions, but even in a manner of speaking on the streets. These contacts have only reinforced the significance of trade and of people-to-people connections, and they serve as a reminder of the shared challenges and opportunities that India and the Latin America and Caribbean region face. Today, we need to reflect on the impressive growth of trade between India and Latin America in recent times. Our trade, our bilateral trade, has surged close to $50 billion during the financial year 2022-23, and it is a testament to both the strength and the potential of our economic partnership. It is worth noting, and I give these comparisons really as a reference. It is worth noting that India's exports to Brazil, for example, stands at $10 billion, which is almost twice of actually what we export to Japan. Similarly, our exports to Mexico is in excess of $5 billion, which is actually more than our exports to Canada. With the Dominican Republic, our exports last year were $329 million, and there are some Asian countries which still haven't come to that level. So I make this comparison to underline the point that these are serious trade accounts. These are growing at a very rapid rate. It's important we really sort of step on the accelerator out here. And if these numbers are an indication, I think people should understand that any effort here, the investments of time and energy will be very, very rewarding. Now, Indian companies have played a significant role in this growth, and with a strong presence in sectors like agriculture, energy, including renewables, information technology, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, automobiles, among others in the LAC region. They have made an aggregate investment, and I know investment figures are always a little debatable here, but I would say it's safe to today assert a ballpark figure of about $15 billion as the investment today of Indian companies in this region, and that too is a reflection on the levels of interest that today Indian businesses have in the region. Now, when I look at different sectors, I would like to particularly mention agriculture, because this is one area which has seen a significant uptick in recent years. India and LAC are today the two largest consumption economies, and therefore food security is really critical to both our populations. Indian sustainable farming techniques do complement LAC's availability of arable landmass, thereby ensuring productive, efficient, and sustainable agriculture using digitization and water conservation technologies. Indian businesses have also invested in decarbonization technologies in the region, and among the notable investments which we have seen are millet farming in Guyana, edible oil production in a number of countries, agrochemical manufacturing sites in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, and the setting up of agro R&D centers. This, coupled with interest in developing improved germplasm and developing cold chain centers, actually indicates that our collaboration is moving from strength to strength. Now, beyond that, India is today successfully executing projects in the Latin America, Caribbean region to develop critical infrastructure, including power transmission. There have been some notable contracts which were awarded in the last few weeks in this regard. Roads, oil and gas, and also connectivity, renewable energy, and we are now seeing the beginnings of defense. Our development partnership is another expanding element of our relationship. Government of India has extended so far 35 lines of credit to partners like Bolivia, Cuba, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Nicaragua, and Suriname. Close to $900 million have been extended under these lines, and we've already completed 21 of these committed projects. Our development projects, certainly we are proud of this, that they have generated local employment, and these delivered by India projects, I think today are a testimony of our capabilities. They are impacting lives in the region. And I was very pleased when I was visiting Guyana that at that time actually we had the delivery of an ocean-going passenger cum cargo ferry, which was a delivery which I believe was done below cost and before time. So I think that is also a statement today of what our industry is capable of. As to rapidly growing economies, it's natural that we should also explore the demand-supply fit between us more aggressively. This is evident, as I said, from our rising trade figures, but also today from oil imports that are taking place from Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and Guyana, and the fact that we are today importing crude oil and POL, petroleum oil and lubricants, worth $7 billion from Latin America. This was the figure for the last year. And that we are exporting actually a similar amount in terms of refined products. I think this is something which is definitely worth noting. If you look at the automobile sector, the car exports to Latin America actually today constitute 1/3 of India's global car exports. And Mexico is actually the second largest market for Indian cars. Other major markets are Chile, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, and Guatemala. Motorcycle exports also constitute 1/3 of India's global exports. And Colombia here is number one as a market for our motorcycles, for our two-wheelers. But again, I must acknowledge Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru as other significant markets. Latin America's capabilities in producing and supplying raw materials also gives it a very special edge when it comes to trade. The region is a big source of gold, copper, and other mineral concentrates, and also for wood. India's gold import from the region last year stood at in excess of $6.5 billion, and these were mainly from Bolivia, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Argentina, Mexico, and Ecuador. Chile was the main supplier of copper, and this too was in excess of $1 billion, followed by Peru, Panama, and Brazil. We've had countries like Uruguay, Ecuador, Brazil, Argentina, Panama, and Costa Rica who have emerged as significant suppliers of wood and wood products. So let me now move on to the field of health. And, as a country which is asserting its capability as the pharmacy of the world, it's natural that we would have supplied COVID vaccines to nearly 100 countries, medicines to 150 countries, and many of them were actually in the Latin America and Caribbean region. In fact, I think the vaccine supply to Latin America and Caribbean was roughly about 9 million doses to 21 countries of the region. But more than the supply, for us, it is a matter of great pride that we were the first suppliers of COVID vaccines to many of our LAC partners, even though supplies were available close by. We are now espousing the concept of people's pharmacy. This is Jan Aushadhi is a concept that we have propagated in India, which is to make medicines, especially generics, available at a very reasonable cost to the low-income segments of our population, but even the others benefit from it. So it is something a model which we believe that many of you might have an interest in. We have been a consistent exporter of pharma products. Today, again, our direct trade with Latin America and Caribbean in this on this particular set of exports is about $1.5 billion. And we are the top supplier of pharmaceuticals to some of your countries. India's large talent pool is also exploring today the global workplace, and it's natural that that exploration would bring us to Latin America. We are willing to work with LAC countries to make movement easier and between our businesses, between our people. And I have every confidence that as we enter an era of the knowledge economy, of artificial intelligence, that the digital businesses will grow and will actually catalyze our cooperation, taking it to higher levels. And one thought which I put forward for your collective consideration is whether we should be discussing and negotiating mobility agreements. Because today legal mobility is increasingly important in a world where we think of a unified workplace. And we have done mobility agreements with a number of countries. We see that as something which is mutually beneficial. So I would really urge it as a subject of reflection for this conclave. Now, the numbers and the descriptions that I have given, I think, are surely a source of optimism. They point to a wide spectrum of opportunities that await us. And, President Dinesh spoke of a target of 100 billion. I'm a great believer in targets. My Prime Minister is an even greater believer. And we have seen when you actually put a number out there, it becomes a motivator in a way that, it somewhere creates that desire to reach a particular goal. So I would really be very much with him in this regard. I think you said 2028. I had actually put 2027 in my speech. So I'm willing to go for your number, but I hope we will end up closer to mine. But as I look at the future, really there are four pillars which I see today as the source of intensified engagement between India and the Latin America and Caribbean region. These four pillars, to my mind, number one is supply chain diversification. Because the pandemic has shown that today there is an urgent global need for more resilience and reliability of supply chains. Whether it is energy, whether it is food, or whether it is even consumer security. The international economy today needs multiple and redundant sourcing. It needs more diversified production. And that is something where really there are new opportunities for us. The second is resource partnerships. As you can see today, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. Talking of numbers, the Prime Minister has put forward the ambition of becoming the 3rd largest economy in his next term. So that's a number out there, both for the term and for the place in the global economic hierarchy. But as we expand, you can already see today the rising demand for oil, for gas, for strategic minerals, for food commodities. And you know, this is part of the growing progress and prosperity and the rising per capita income in this country. And we see this as really a big opportunity for our partners in Latin America and Caribbean. Indian products and services, in turn, we feel will help to meet the expectations, aspirations, and the price points of the rising middle class of the Latin American region. So we do believe here that there is a resource partnership and a manufacturing fit which would work to our advantage. The third pillar is the sharing of developmental experiences. As countries of the global south, we can surely benefit if we actually talk to each other about digital capabilities, about health solutions, about agricultural practices, and about infrastructure capabilities. Increasing training and exchanges will encourage more market exposure. And my one big takeaway from the last trips that I made to Latin America is that we in India have to find better ways of actually growing the training and exchange part of our relationship. We have to customize it much more for the requirements of the Latin American Caribbean region. We have to make it more user-friendly, much more relevant really for your priorities. And that is something today that my ministry is looking at very, very seriously. The fourth pillar is, of course, addressing global challenges. Because while we have the, all the requirements of bilateral and regional cooperation, there are actually larger issues, global issues, planetary issues that we also need to look at, because we are very important stakeholders in that as well. And collaborating on issues such as climate change, the concerns of the global south, reforming the global financial and multilateral structures, I think these are very essential. And many of you would have noted that in our G20 presidency and initiatives like Voice of the South Summit, these are proof of our intentions. These are really a testament to our commitment to partners in Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, a stronger relationship between us obviously holds a lot of potential, a great deal of possibilities. And by harnessing our shared strength, our experiences, our capabilities, our resources, we can actually create a lasting partnership that will benefit both our regions. We live in a globalized era, and we must now make sure that distance is no longer an impediment. Modern logistics offer us collaborative possibilities. So do modern communications. And we have today the scope for partnerships that we could not have even imagined earlier. So our business creativity, the demand in each economy, especially the growing middle class demand, the competitive capabilities that we both have, these can actually truly create great synergies. I have no doubt that this conclave is another step that would fuel the increasing intensity of our cooperation. I'm truly gratified to see the the scope, the scale, the level today of the meeting. And I think this bodes very well for the future of our partnership. Once again, I welcome you all, but I also wish you a very productive meeting and very, I would say, worthwhile sessions in the days ahead. Thank you very much for your attention.
May I now invite Excellencies for the photo opportunity and request all the liaison officers to escort them on the dais as I am taking their names. His Excellency Dr. Gomez, Executive Vice President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and Minister of People's Power for Economy, Finance and Foreign Trade. His Excellency Mr. Fernandez, Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Transportation and Investment, the Government of Antigua Barbuda. His Excellency Mr. Loaiza, Minister of Development Planning of the Plurinational State of Bolivia. His Excellency Mr. Williams, Minister for Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, Government of Grenada. His Excellency Dr. Anthony, Minister of Health of the Cooperative Republic of Ghana. Mr. Campos, Secretary of State in the Office of the Presidency of the Republic of Honduras. His Excellency Mr. Rivas, Minister of Economy, Government of Nuevo León, Mexico. His Excellency Caesar, Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries, Rural Transformation and Industry, St. Vincent and Grenadines. His Excellency Mr. Pinto, Minister of People's Power for Foreign Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Honorable Mr. Quintero, Governor of the People's Power of the Cienfuegos Province, Republic of Cuba. His Excellency Mr. Sepulveda, Governor of Nuevo León, State Government of Mexico. His Excellency Ms. Saavedra, Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, Ministry of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, Republic of Cuba. His Excellency Emmanuel Lu, Deputy Minister of Investment of the Nuevo León, State Government, Mexico. His Excellency Mr. Arevalo, Vice Minister of Development of Micro, Medium and Small Enterprises, Ministry of Economy, Guatemala. His Excellency Ms. Gomez, Vice Minister of Foreign Trade of Peru. His Excellency Mr. Hernandez, Vice Minister of Productive Economy of Venezuela, Ministry of People's Power of Economy, Finance and Foreign Trade of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. His Excellency Mr. Joan Marquez, Deputy Minister for Foreign Trade and Investment Promotion, Ministry of People's Power of Economy, Finance and Foreign Trade of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. His Excellency Ms. Moreno, Vice Minister for Asia, Middle East and Oceania of Venezuela, Ministry of People's Power for Foreign Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.